play at a certain field, whoever's at.
Happy Saturday night. This is not what I was going to start out with initially, but as soon as I opened my Twitter settings, I saw this. I wish I didn't care as much as Britney Spears. I don't know what kind of drug she's on, but I think it would make life a heck of a lot more fun. I am getting over a very nasty cold, so it'd probably be a shorter night tonight. And I'm going to try not to cough into the microphone. So I will do my best to mute it. But yeah, there's Britney for you. I figured I'd share that with everyone. Start off. I'll tell you what, I think that receivership was probably a good idea initially. But it seems as if Britney Spears is a representation of everything that's going on in the world in the way of craziness. Well, welcome those of you on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, Kick, Twitter, X, and in the way of craziness, also Twitch. So let's get started. Like I said, I'll probably keep it relatively shorter than usual. As some of you may know, it was a pretty crazy week this week with news. And one of the things that happened was it started out kind of bad for Republicans and got much better towards the end of the week. Well, one of those things was the impeachment of Mayorkas for basically not doing his job and not doing his job on purpose. Let's be honest. He is purposefully leaving the border wide open. And he was going through an impeachment hearing, which everybody thought pretty much was a slam dunk until a bunch of scumbag Republicans, including this guy, Mike Gallagher, decided that they were going to change their vote. Some were never going to change it initially, or at the last minute changed it to no. So this Mike Gallagher was one of those congressmen that decided to change their vote, to the surprise of a lot of people. Because again, everybody kind of thought that, this is a slam dunk. I mean, it's obvious that Mayorkas isn't doing what he's supposed to be doing. and the whole idea of the impeachment should have been relatively easy. But Gallagher made an announcement on Saturday signaling a significant shift in his career path and political landscape of Northeast Wisconsin. So he goes on to make this statement of how, he's accomplished all these things and how wonderful everything was, but essentially he's going to not run for re-election. And again, instead of saying, well, the reason for me resigning is I know that I'm going to get primaried now because I pissed off all my constituents, and telling the truth and being honest, he decided that he says, I really just feel like I've accomplished much more than I've even thought that I could when I set out, and I firmly don't believe that the best use for the next chapter of my career is staying in Congress for another decade. That's because it wouldn't happen. Because people are sick and tired of the Republicans not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And, quite honestly, I've realized now, actually for a long time, that there's really, if you think in terms of Republicans and Democrats, you're kind of naive because they're all one party. They're all essentially serving the same people. But this is encouraging to see. It was discouraging to see and hopefully they're going to have a new vote next week. But to see this guy drop out, and we know why he did, because Gallagher's decision comes on the heels of the controversial vote against impeachment of the Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. The resolution H-Res 863 accuses Secretary Mayorkas of high crimes and misdemeanors, setting the stage for a contentious vote in the House of Representatives. Specifically, the two articles contained in the resolution accuse Mayorkas of willful and systemic refusal to comply with the law in enforcing border policy and, quote, breach of public trust, which is essentially true. This whole border situation could be shut down tomorrow if they want to. But what's happening now is the Democrats realize that Donald Trump is going to win. I think it's inevitable. They realize it's inevitable. So they're trying to stuff as many illegal immigrants into the country as they possibly can, as quickly as they can. And the reason they're doing that is because what they want to do is if they have so many people into the country, when Trump gets in, it's going to make it that much more difficult for him to expel them or deport them. And, the whole idea, and there's many reasons for this illegal immigration. And it's really a shame that more people aren't paying attention to what's going on and why this is happening. I mean, number one, one of the things that they're trying to do, obviously, is solidify the Democrats in power. And in order to do that, they need more votes. Just like when they were doing the ballot stuffing and all the stuff, the funny stuff they were doing in 2020, this is another way for them to do it. Hold on here. Real WH Grandpa invited 2 or 3, 4 minutes. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. So the whole idea is to stuff as many illegal immigrants into the country, and then the other thing as well is how many people can we possibly bring in to fill in the gap of those who aren't working in the United States. We have a serious problem of millennials not wanting to work. And if you pay attention to social media and a lot of these reports, a lot of these millennials are, for some reason, I guess they believe that once they go to college, they should graduate from college, automatically get a job, and everything is smooth sailing. And I don't know, I mean, that, I just turned 50. That was never taught to me. It was never expected that I would go to college, come out of college, and then automatically get a job of my choosing, by the way. Let me be more specific. Of my choosing, of what I want to do, and then make the salary exactly of what I want. That's going to be to my standards and help me with my standard of living. That I never expected that. After college, I went out and I worked a job that I didn't really want to work, and then figured out, okay, what was I good at? What did I enjoy? Where did I think that I could actually work my way up? And realize that, hey, either you have to stay with your parents at least temporarily. Now, a lot of these millennials, they're staying, well into their 30s, in some cases probably even 40s and higher with their parents, as opposed to saying, all right, I'll stay with my parents while I work. Or get roommates and live with a bunch of people so you can split up the cost of living. And I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but this is, this is partly America's fault. The people of America who just think, oh, I did what everybody told me to do. They told me to go to college. This is what I was supposed to go to college, and I would come out. Well, you either heard what you wanted to hear, or you were lied to, or you have parents that are like, oh, you can be anything you want to be, just blowing smoke up your ass. But we have a generation, more than one generation at this point now, that is unwilling to put in the work that's necessary and deal with the lower end type jobs in order to work their way up. Like, I started in banking and worked my way up in banking. But a lot of these kids think, okay, I graduate from college and I am immediately going to make $100,000 a year. I'm sorry, that just doesn't work that way. Excuse me. So, like I said, I think I said earlier that I might be coughing a little bit because I'm getting over a nasty cold, so I apologize. But that is part of the reason why there's a lot of illegal immigrants coming in to the country, is because we're trying to make up for that lost workforce. That is not a good thing at all. We need to figure out how to do it without bringing in a whole new class of people illegally. That's on our federal government. And then the other thing is that we have very, very bad recruiting when it comes to the military. And so they're trying to use this illegal immigration in order to make up for that as well. It was the military that decided to use DEI in order to recruit people that probably wouldn't necessarily be desirable. And so I'll give you an example. One of the advertisements, if you haven't seen it, some of you may have, is an advertisement for or as a recruiting advertisement for the military with a girl with two mothers. And it was like a cartoon thing. Meanwhile, you have the CCP, Russia. They have recruitment videos and advertising that show, hardened young men who are going out and getting ready to fight. Complete opposite of what we were doing in recruiting for our military. Now, instead of taking responsibility for that and saying, hey, what we need to do is we need to do better in our recruiting. Let's find somebody else that can do better for our advertisements. Instead, no, what they're going to do is they're going to try to bring in as many illegal immigrants as they can in order to fill the coffers that way. So, and the proof of that is that there are stories in the airports where you're starting to see these illegal immigrants going into these hidden rooms, and in those hidden rooms are officers in the military. Now, I can't prove any of that, but it makes sense. And there was a congressman from Illinois, Dick Durbin, who on video said both of those things. We are running low on medical personnel and we are running low on military, so we need to let these illegal immigrants fill in those gaps. It's just a horrible strategy for America. So anyway, that's why Mayorkas is allowing him to come in, and we all know that this is an easy faucet to turn right off. And welcome all of those of you that are coming in. I see there's a huge amount here. A huge amount. I don't know where I get my words from. But thank you on Rumble. It's about time I start seeing some chats from Rumble. That's great. Thank you. And that's what, off on another tangent, is to try and move as many people to Rumble as possible. I have 50,000 followers on YouTube. However, as we all know, YouTube is a platform run by communists, supporting communists. And if you tell the truth on YouTube, they silence you. So at the very least, Rumble is a platform where they don't do that, at least for now, and hopefully they stay that way. So it is encouraging to see. Thank you to all of you that are coming on Rumble. That is a great thing to see. I greatly appreciate it. And there is way more activity, obviously, now from Rumble. And there are a lot of huge, not that I'm not huge, but there are a lot of big content creators. Barstool Sports recently just moved over to Rumble, which is really good to see. So anyway, back to the Mayorkas deal. So the whole point of this is to bring in as many people as they possibly can illegally, because they know that Trump's going to win. And the more they bring in, the more difficult it's going to be. So this guy is going to lose his seat. He knows it. And so his decision to not run for re-election comes on the heels of this guy here. His name is Alex Bruchowitz, and I follow him on Twitter. He actually is a young guy, very, very smart, and he has a lot of great things to say on Twitter. And so he essentially said that he was going to run against Gallagher. And here was a statement from Bruchowitz. Rep. Gallagher was considered by many as a rising star in the GOP, but instead of embracing the MAGA movement, he decided to betray the grassroots and protect the swamp. Mike is now quitting Congress because he knows he would face an embarrassing defeat in the upcoming primary. His vote to protect Alejandro Mayorkas was a foolish, career-ending mistake. He claims that he voted against Mayorkas' impeachment out of principle, but that's just not the truth. As reported by the Heritage Foundation's Mike Howell, Gallagher was potentially involved in a horse trading agreement with Secretary Mayorkas, otherwise known as a quid pro quo. I don't know the details of that. I have to research that more. As we find out more information on this serious allegation, I wouldn't be shocked if Gallagher found himself under investigation by the House Ethics Committee. He deserves due process, but it sure looks bad. But for the reporters, members of Congress, and grassroots patriots across Wisconsin who are reaching out to me asking if I will run, let's just say I'm now taking a very strong look. So I certainly hope that he does, and it was really good news to see that somebody like this resign, knowing that he's not going to win the re-election, that he's going to be primaried, and more of this has to happen. The only way that we're going to change things is that this type of stuff happens. Now, the one bad thing about it is if these guys decide, and here per Axios are all of the House Republicans that are not seeking re-election in 2024, is that it is extremely important that somebody else comes in and takes their place on the Republican side. And the reason I say how important that is because Jamie Raskin said, and I'm going to show you the video. It's funny because it was on CNN and involves Wolf Blitzer almost puking. However, what Jamie Raskin says is that they expect to win the House. And then when they do, somehow, I don't know how he figures he's going to do it, but try and keep Donald Trump from actually taking office even if he wins. So that's going to be extremely important. Let me show you the
congregating around the argument that was offered by Trump's able lawyer.
Those of you who didn't see this is hilarious. I showed that earlier. Okay, so here is Jamie Raskin
Congregating around the argument that was offered by...
And I'll actually play this twice because it's... Watch Wolf Blitzer first, and then we're going to go over what Jamie Raskin says.
Congregating around the argument that was offered by Trump's able lawyer, basically making the point that, Trump might be disqualified from holding office, but he's not disqualified from running for office. And if he were removed from the ballot in Colorado, as the Colorado Supreme Court found he should be, Congress might act in the meantime to exercise our 2/3 authority to remove the disability from Donald Trump. Congregating around the argument that was offered by Trump's able lawyer, basically making the point that, Trump might be disqualified from holding office, but he's not disqualified from running for office. And if he were removed from the ballot in Colorado, as the Colorado Supreme Court found he should be, Congress might act in the meantime to exercise our 2/3 authority to remove the disability from Donald Trump.
So Jamie Raskin is, I don't know, he's kind of a word salad thing, and I have to look into this a little bit more, but it's just funny to watch Wolf Blitzer almost puke. But Jamie Raskin essentially is saying that, and again, he's thinking that he's going to, or the Democrats are going to end up winning the House, and somehow they're going to prevent Donald Trump, even if all this stuff goes through, prevent him from taking office. Now, this is where the good news starts coming in. Those of you who know, or hopefully know, that it looks as if the Supreme Court is going to rule in the favor of Donald Trump, that he can remain on the ballot in Colorado. And if that happens, then essentially that one of those cases that he's going through is going is going to hopefully kind of go away. They're going to come up with other stuff, but it would be a huge win. And seemingly, based on what I've read and heard, that the lawyers for removing Trump from the ballot have been eviscerated by almost every single justice. So, that was a huge win. Now, of course, it hasn't been decided yet, but it seems, based on the audio from the Supreme Court, that it's going to go in that direction. And I certainly hope that it does. And that would be a huge win for Donald Trump. And of course, he's got the other cases he has to deal with. And I'll talk a little bit about the one in Miami regarding the documents, because of Joe Biden, who was going through the same thing, and look what happened to him. But we'll get into that later. But let me take a break here real quick and call out the people that have shown up here. What do we got? We got Poshaka, Electra 12. Thank you for being here. 17 is my lucky number. Welcome. Bethany Loves Food is our moderator. Thank you, Bethany. Producer Bethany. Did I say Electra 12? Educated Honky. Gnarly Gagger or Gager. And I think, is it real WH Grandpa responsible for this group of people coming over? I thank you very much. So welcome to all of you that are here. This is that's great. And if you do want to donate, you can. Down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see you can go to Dennis or Streamlabs/Den Hendrickson, and your comment will actually be read on air automatically. And you can also visit my website, DennisHendrickson.com. You can actually join there for free. And so anytime that I post something to YouTube or any of that kind of stuff, I will also post it there so you can get free content and paid content. But then, at least if you sign up there, you can even sign up, like I said, as free. You'll be notified of anything going on. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to go on to the Sonny Hostin's family owned slaves. Now, I hate The View. And words cannot describe how much I dislike them. And the main reason why is because, as I'm sure all of you that are watching know, that it is a propaganda outlet for those naive people who really don't understand what's going on. And Sonny Hostin is a huge proponent of getting paid slavery reparations. But in sweet, sweet irony, she went to PBS, to this show, to find out whether or not, I guess what her background was or whatever. And it turns out that she herself is a descendant of slave owners from Spain. And this picture is great. It's just like a perfect picture. So let me read you this article. In a twist that sounds like it's straight out of a satirical comedy, Sonny Hostin, a far-left progressive political commentator and co-host of The View, experienced a jaw-dropping revelation on PBS Finding Your Roots. Hostin, an outspoken advocate for slavery reparations, was shocked to learn that her own lineage traces back to Spanish slave owners. The episode left a 55-year-old far-left host grappling with a complex personal revelation. Hostin, whose mother is Puerto Rican and father is African American, has long identified with her Puerto Rican heritage and as a civil rights movement. And as we know, that they're all far leftists. Joy Behart's probably the worst out of all of them. But like I said, it is just really funny to watch her awkward reaction to this.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that,
My friend. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I love that.
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of others.
It's best for us to find out what actually happened in your past. I mean, it's wonderful for us to find out, because now, and these leftists, what's so great about it is they always find themselves eating crow all the time, and it is just so satisfying to watch. And her reaction to it, she can't run away from it. She absolutely has to own it. Now, part of the problem, though, is that she's going to go back on, and I think she already did. She went back on The View and essentially says she still thinks that reparations should be paid. So these people have no soul. They have no conscience. They don't believe at all that there's consequences coming to them. They're paid propagandists. They're very well paid propagandists. And they've sold their souls to the devil in order to get the jobs that they have. They get paid ridiculous amounts of money. I don't know how they sleep at night, but they do. And they have no problem sitting there getting on TV, on CBS or NBC, ABC, and just flat out lying to you. But then when something like this pops up and we all get to see it, it just proves even more of who these people are and what hypocrites they are. So I found that really satisfying to watch and wanted to share that with everyone. Now, one of the other kind of angering things to see was what happened with Joe Biden. And this is very similar to what we saw with Hillary Clinton and the email server in the basement, in the bathroom, all that stuff. And James Comey essentially said, yeah, what she did was wrong. She mishandled classified information, but we're not going to prosecute. And everybody knows, including the Democrats, there's a two-tier justice system. But this is so out in the open and a middle finger to everyone that there is a two-tier justice system, that it's somewhat demoralizing, because you see the lawfare that's going on right now against Donald Trump. And one of the things that he's dealing with is the documents issue, the documents deal that's in Miami, and he has a judge that was appointed by him. So hopefully that's going to work out in his favor. But here you have Biden in the exact same situation with documents in his garage, at least. And first of all, these are documents that he shouldn't have had because he was vice president and senator. At least when it came to Donald Trump, the document he had were okay because he was president, and they were under lock and key behind Secret Service. But again, it's a two-tier justice system. And even the investigation came back and said, yeah, he was guilty. Biden was guilty. And that he had significant memory issues. He did not remember when he was vice president. He did not remember even within several years when his son Beau died. Let me read this section. Mr. Biden's memory also appeared to have significant limitations, both at the time he spoke to Zwanitzer in 2017 as evidenced by their recorded conversations, and today as evidenced by his recorded interview with our office. Mr. Biden's recorded conversations with Zwanitzer from 2017 are often painfully slow. It's kind of what we witness when we watch him talk on TV and then try to figure out what stairs he should take. And then shake hands with somebody that's not there. With Mr. Biden struggling to remember events and straining at times to read and relay his own notebook entries. In his interview with our office, Mr. Biden's memory was worse. He did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his term ended. Quote, if it was 2013, when did I stop being vice president? And forgetting on the second day of the interview when his term began. Quote, in 2009, am I still vice president? He did not remember, even within several years, when his son Beau died, and his memory appeared hazy when describing the Afghanistan debate that was once so important to him. Among other things, he mistakenly said that he had a real difference of opinion with General Carl Eikenberry, when in fact Eikenberry was an ally whom Mr. Biden cited approvingly in his Thanksgiving memo to President Obama. So what this means is, and somehow this will get through. Now, just imagine for a minute that this was Trump. I mean, even like just like a minute portion. Every time Donald Trump says, I guess he had gotten Nancy Pelosi confused with Nikki Haley once, or if he slipped down a ramp and had somebody helping him down the ramp because the bottom of his shoes were slippery. The constant attacks that he's been going through during the presidency and leading up to that. I mean, just constant attacks by the media, who is paid for by the deep state or run by the deep state, and oligarchs, doing everything they can to try and destroy him. Biden can't have it both ways now. So he's not going to be prosecuted for these documents in his possession because he's too old. But yet he can still remain as president. It's insane. But you don't see, at least I haven't seen it. And I very, very rarely even check the mainstream media anymore. But I'm relatively sure that no one said, hey, well, we're at a significant point here. If he's not going to be prosecuted, then why aren't we invoking the 25th Amendment? Now, some people have said that this is all really pretty much a setup in order to take him out of the race and replace him with someone else, which is a distinct possibility, and I think we'll see what happens. But his rapid decline right now, I think, is inevitable before November. I just don't see how it's possible. I'm surprised he's lasted as long as he had without having a significant event. I mean, he is in really, really bad shape. So I just don't see him even making it to that point. So yeah, could it be Michelle Obama or Big Mike? She said that she doesn't want to run. But you know, they all lie. So, so that's a possibility. Gavin Newsom is another one. I would say if they were going to pick somebody, I would say Gavin Newsom would be the guy to do it. I think what they're hoping is that they end up making it to the DNC, and at that point is when they make that decision. I mean, that's what some people's theories are. But like I said, I'm not sure even when that is, but I don't know if he's gonna last. I mean, his decline is you could just see he's just getting worse and worse. And this stuff in the news, these things that have just come out with the Supreme Court and now this. I mean, it probably doesn't bother him because he doesn't really know what planet he's on. So stress level is probably meaningless right now to him because there just isn't anything there. There's nothing upstairs anymore. But yeah, there's no doubt that there's a two-tier justice system, and I want to read what Donald Trump said about it on Truth. Special Counsel Robert Hutt released a long-awaited, I don't know if that's right, I think it's Hugh, I don't know if that name is right, released a long-awaited and bitingly critical report that concluded criminal charges against President Joe Biden were not warranted, but said there was evidence Biden willfully retained and shared highly classified information when he was a private citizen, including documents about military and foreign policy in Afghanistan. The report repeatedly pointed to Biden's hazy memory and language, has raised new concerns about the president's competency and age, a top concern for voters. AP. So when are they charging? So then why are they charging me? I did nothing wrong. Presidential Records Act, a two-tier system of justice. This is an attack on Sleepy Joe's political opponent, me. It is large-scale election interference. It is absolutely 100% election interference, just like all of the other cases. The one in Georgia, you see Fatty Willis, who's about as corrupt as the day is long. You see how that whole thing is falling apart because she decided to have an affair with a subordinate, pay him all kinds of money. He pays that money, or doesn't pay that money, but takes that money to take them on trips, and then she uses the excuse that he gifted her those trips. I mean, everything about this stuff always falls apart. The Engeron case, I've said over and over and over again, is an absolute farce. People seem to think that somehow that case is legitimate. It's not. It's political. It's lawfare. It's malicious prosecution. It's selective prosecution. Engeron, after Trump's lawyers tried to dismiss that case, Engeron says, on what basis? Trump's lawyers say, nobody was harmed. The banks all got paid back. Deutsche Bank, et al., all of them got paid. The banks themselves were saying, well, why are we, what are we having this conversation for? That he paid us, we did our appraisals, we looked at everything, we got paid. Like, why are we talking about this? So there was nobody harmed in the case. Judge Engeron, who I hesitate to even call a judge. He shouldn't be a judge. He's an activist, and so is his wife, and so is his kid. Evidenced by their Twitter posts and their Twitter accounts, which is a whole different story. He says the fairness in the marketplace is the victim. Now, any business person, especially in New York City, on Wall Street, would laugh at that. Mr. Wonderful, the guy that's on that show, I can't remember now, where inventors or whoever show them the stuff. He says, this is absolutely insane. You would literally have to prosecute every business person and real estate person in New York City, across the entire country, because everybody tries to do what they can to make their properties up to the highest level they possibly can to get the most money they can. It's up to the banks to figure out whether or not they are comfortable with it. And so, you know, that it's just from that perspective, and seeing what Engoron is saying, I don't know why more people aren't talking about that. The fact that Engoron is saying, I'm not dismissing the case because the fairness in the marketplace is a victim, is laughable, and it should be talked about constantly, all over all the media. But it's not. And it's these little things in these cases. Well, I mean, in Fatty Willis's case, it's obvious corruption. Now we see in Miami, we see that is a joke. At this point, you have to throw out the case on Donald Trump. I mean, you know, to say that Biden is not guilty, and we all know why they're not doing it, because they don't want Trump to be president. We all know what this is. And what's unbelievably maddening is that we all just sit here and watch it happen. We all just sit here and watch Nazi Germany unfold right before our eyes, and have the SS arrest people on January 6th for no reason. Give them 20 years for no reason. Shoot somebody like Ashley Babbitt and get away with it. And use January 6th, which is it was all planned in order to keep Trump from ever running again. Sorry about my coughing. So there you have it. Donald Trump is, I don't know how he's handling this. I'll tell you what. I don't know if it's just a personality trait that this guy has, or when you have as much money that he has, it doesn't mean, like, this kind of stuff just doesn't mean anything to you. But the bullets that he's taking is just insane. Absolutely insane. But he's just taking it like a champ, and you know, each time he gets, you know, one case after another case, it was just making him more popular. And again, the Democrats did not expect that. And I think you have Nikki Haley, who's staying in the race, because I still think she thinks that somehow one of these cases is going to put him out of the race, and she's going to, you know, like, slip in. But that's another piece of garbage that the donor darling, the current donor darling, Nikki Haley, the cheater, I despise that woman, and I've been saying this for the longest time, for years ago. Now, Nikki Haley, I cannot believe that she ran for president, considering she cheated on her husband like that. So, and then, expected to run for president, not have that come up. All right, let's see. Got Rumble is, again, thank you all on Rumble. This is, WH Grandpa. Shout out to you, brother. Thank you. I greatly appreciate the referral. That is very much appreciated. And to all of you that followed his lead to come on over here, thank you again. I appreciate the support. That really means a lot. Thank you. So, again, Joe Biden is clearly above the law. The Democrats are clearly above the law. And it is it's frustrating to see. It's frustrating to watch. And, I certainly hope, and I think I'm more confident now than I have been that Donald Trump's going to get through these cases. And I was talking to Bethany, and thank you, Bethany, for doing the moderation and everything. That think about all of the things that were told about Donald Trump that were lies. I mean, from the very first day that he announced that he was going to run for president, and he came down that escalator and they said, all the Mexicans are bad people. That was a lie. The Russian collusion was a lie. And it's just so many people that I knew or know that bought into the Russian collusion narrative and how the walls were closing in. How they constantly were talking about how the walls were going to close in on Donald Trump. Another bombshell, and the walls are closing in. Another bombshell. The stories of the hookers and peeing on P tapes, all these things that were coming out about him. One thing after another. And every single time he was proven innocent. And he's just attacked relentlessly. And I think part of, number one, his first term in office, he was spending, obviously he had to deal with COVID, which I do believe now, beyond any reasonable doubt, that COVID was not only man-made, and I'll probably get banned on YouTube for this, which I don't care at this point, because YouTube is run by communists and scumbags and murderers. Literally murderers are running YouTube. That COVID was released in order to derail Donald Trump's presidency. And how do I know this? Well, look at what they tried to hide about the lab and the lab leak, and it came from a bat, but it didn't come from a bat. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. But in 2017, Anthony Fauci at Georgetown gave a speech and said, there will be a surprise outbreak during Donald Trump's presidency. There will be. Not, there's a good probability. There's a possibility. And so all of these things that Donald Trump had to go through, COVID, the lies, the media, the relentless attacks from the media, and look what they're doing to him now. It is absolutely incredible what he's had to put up with. And you look at Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, and what they're doing to protect him, because there's so much at risk. These people in the deep state have so much, they are not going to give it up without a fight at all. They are absolutely not going to give it up.
Is helping him run the country.
The President of the United States runs the country. The Commander-in-Chief runs the country.
Nobody believes that either. The president does not run the country. She is not good at this job. And I made a comment about this, that she is not good at this job, and it got about 140,000 views on Twitter, because everybody knows that she's a diversity hire and she's absolutely terrible, and you can tell in that particular case that she's defeated. I mean, how much more can you possibly lie without just saying, I can't do this anymore? I don't know how she does it. But again, those people just don't have a conscience at all. They just don't. And here you have, again, illustrating the point that at what point are you going to say you can't have it both ways? You can't say that you're not going to prosecute Biden criminally for the issue with his documents, but then he's okay with running the country in his diminished capacity.
Initially, as you know, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate. I talked to Bibi to open the gate on the Israeli side. As you know...
So he's getting presidents mixed up. And this little graphic is pretty funny. Mexico, south of the Gaza Strip. But he said red states and green states. I mean, he's getting it's just not, and this is what I'm saying. It's accelerating so quickly that it's getting beyond, it's really getting bad. And I just don't see how it's possible that this guy is going to make it to the DNC. I just don't see how it's going to happen. And I think even Trump had mentioned that he doesn't see that happening either. So, so we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. But it's crazy. All right. And then the big story, the super big story, was the Tucker Carlson interview. I'll take a quick second to ask, how many of you actually saw the interview that are in the chat? I hope you did, because it was really, really good. I learned a lot from it, and it was really interesting. Just going to check here what we got. Saw it. One in the chat if you saw it. Yeah, so so it looks like a lot of you did see it. And it pissed a lot of people off, unsurprisingly, because one of the things that Putin said was that Boris Johnson, which we had already known, ruined the possibility of actually having some sort of ceasefire or agreement to end the war. I don't think it's purposely being accelerated. I think what's happening with Biden is I think that they're propping him up with drugs. I think they're giving him as much stuff as they possibly can. Now, some people have said that when they put him out I think was it yesterday? Or maybe the day before. I can't remember what it was. It was sort of unusual for him to have as many meetings as he did or press conferences, to where they were kind of purposefully throwing him under the bus to make him look bad, so they can use it as an excuse to just say, hey, look, he's got to step down. So I'm not totally sure about that. I just think that he's declining rapidly. You could tell. You could just see he's just nothing's there. He's not running it. But it's getting so bad. Everybody knows he's not running it. It's Obama that's running it and his team that's running it. But he physically is getting so bad that they just can't keep that up anymore. And they just need another figurehead to put in his place. So it's just a matter of who it's going to be. Because again, we know, and this is another thing, by the way, when we talk about the Putin interview, was Putin made it pretty clear, and tell me if you guys remember this, but he made it pretty clear that, when he was talking about, and Bill Clinton comes to mind, and because it was a long interview, but when he asked Bill Clinton, could he join NATO, and Bill Clinton said, sure. Yeah, I think so. And then he came back later that night for dinner and said, yeah, no. Essentially what it means, along with some other things when it came into some missile defense systems with other countries, that no, you're pretty much not going to be part of our group, our thing. You're pretty much going to stay out of it. And even though Putin tried to, at least that's what he claimed in the interview. I mean, I'm sure plenty of people can say that, how bad of a guy Putin is. But what I can say, and my opinion of this, and I could be wrong, but I think my opinion, is pretty accurate with this. That Putin is not as bad as what everybody makes him out to be, especially like somebody like Hillary Clinton, which I'm going to show in a second. And then this also proves it with Boris Johnson. So Boris Johnson's all pissed off because he makes him look bad.
Around the world, people are watching that ludicrous interview with Vladimir Putin conducted by Tucker Carlson, and we must not fall for this tissue of lies, above all for the notion that Putin is somehow fated to succeed in Ukraine. On the contrary, he is doomed to fail. Read about it in the Daily Mail.
There are several things wrong with that. Number one, you were the one who thwarted a possible agreement to end the war on purpose because you were told to do so, and those making money from this war would lose their profits if they didn't act on your behalf. And Putin pretty much told us what we already knew, that was the case. And so, of course, Boris Johnson sits there and tells you that who's the liar? It's a ludicrous interview. I didn't think it was a ludicrous interview at all. And then Boris Johnson also lied. And these guys, they rely on the fact that people have short-term memories. Case in point, he's having parties while everybody else is locked down during COVID. He's having wine parties. And his father, I can't remember, somebody in the chat might remember Boris Johnson's father was involved in some stuff as well. But they're all interconnected, by the way. That's all these people are just, especially like from Jeffrey Epstein and the Mossad and the CIA, all this stuff, they're all interconnected with each other and their families. But Boris Johnson's going to sit there and tell you it's a ludicrous interview. Of course it's ludicrous, because it exposes you for who you are. And so he's going to say that. He's going to say that Putin's a liar. He's going to say it's a ludicrous interview, but we know who you are. You're a liar. And essentially, as far as I'm concerned, I think Boris Johnson is a murderer. Because think about, for a moment, how many people are dying in Ukraine. There have been an insane amount of people, 6 figures of people that have passed away in the battle in Ukraine. Some say an entire generation of young men in Ukraine. That is really, really sad. And people like Boris Johnson wants to sit there and say it's a ludicrous interview, and you're the one who you could have it could have been stopped. And they didn't want this interview to come out because again, it confirmed what a lot of people already knew. Here's another one. This animal.
Dog. You know, he somehow has, I mean, he's like a puppy dog. You know, he somehow has, after having been fired from so many outlets in the United States, I would not be surprised if he emerges with a contract with an outlet, because he is a useful idiot. He says he's surprised if he emerges with a contract with an outlet, because he is a useful idiot.
They muted that Russian outlet.
He says things that are not true. He parrots Vladimir Putin's pack of lies about Ukraine. So I don't see why Putin wouldn't give him an interview, because through him, he can, continue to lie about what his, objectives are in Ukraine and what he expects to see happen. It's really quite sad that not just somebody like Tucker Carlson, who has, as I said, been fired so many times because he seems unable to, correlate his reporting with the truth, but also because it's a sign that there are people in this country right now who are like a fifth column for Vladimir Putin. And why? I don't know. I mean, why are certain Republicans throwing their lot in? Why are, other Americans basically believing Putin? Why did Trump believe Putin more than our 11 intelligence agencies?
I don't know. Do you have a working theory on that?
I do have a working theory.
Wow. Does that just make your skin crawl, listening to her? How many times? I mean, it was Hillary Clinton who funded the opposition research against Trump. I mean, I guess she thinks that everybody's forgotten. Tucker Carlson, and look what she does. She says, "Well, look how he got fired." Well, why do you think he got fired? He got fired because he was going to release a bunch of J6 footage, and that would make the deep state look bad. So he had to go. I mean, the guy was the number one man, the number one person in cable news network by far, and they fired him. And you never get fired or silenced for telling the truth, or telling lies, I should say. You get fired and silenced for telling the truth, and that's what he was doing. He was telling the truth, and that's why he got fired. And that's how it works these days. He's part of a fifth column for Putin. And why do you think all these people came out? Clinton comes out, Boris Johnson comes out, the usual suspects come out, and they give these interviews. I mean, they can't make it any more obvious. And for her to sit there and call Tucker Carlson a liar. Now, I do have an issue with Tucker Carlson because I've said in a previous podcast where he has some explaining to do on some texts that he made that were in discovery for the Dominion voting system case. But I do believe that he's somebody who is doing everything he possibly can to tell the truth. And the January 6th thing, when he was about to release those tapes, that's when everything went sideways. But Hillary Clinton, the biggest liar there is, and how many people have died around her circle unexpectedly? Now, I'm not a fan of Andrew Tate, but he did say something that was really, really interesting that is still the truth, even the type of person that he is, but it's still truthful. And there were a lot of things that were discussed. I'll kind of go through some of the things that I remember, but he says, for all the conservatives disappointed in the Putin interview, think twice. And I think when disappointed, I think maybe they were expecting more damning things for him from Putin. And I think it was pretty damning, the interview, in my opinion. There wasn't a whole lot more I really think that he could say. I think he kind of made it pretty clear what the United States really is, and who Russia really is. So he says, think twice. We expect Putin to save us, to tell truths which would ignite nationalism and sensibilities in the West. Think twice. Putin highlighted repeatedly, the West will never be his ally or treat him fairly. And what he's mentioning there is again what I had said before, is that Putin had asked on several occasions, including Boris Yeltsin, that sending out signals that we want to be part of NATO, we want to be part of the West, we want to work with all of you. And for whatever reason, it was just given the finger again and again, repeatedly, by the West. And so he knows that no matter what he does, he's always going to be treated that way. And there's really not a whole lot that he can do. So he understands this deeply. Why would Putin want to fix the America border crisis? Well, he's kind of looking at it and saying, it sucks for the American people, but what do I care? I know they're destroying their own nation by allowing the border to be wide open. I mean, of course, he's not going to help us. I mean, why would he? Why would Putin want to end the Ukraine war, which is inflating and destroying European nations and us? I mean, it's putting us into debt even more and more. How much more money are we going to give to Ukraine? I mean, we've got plenty going on in our own country that needs to be dealt with, but that doesn't make the oligarchs rich. And that's another reason why we need Trump in office. No wars during Trump, plenty of war while Biden is in office because of the people behind the scenes running things. He's not afraid, and he's not going to lose that war. And everybody knows this. Putin is not going to lose. He's not losing. And how many times have we been told? It's again, and it's just like when they were saying during Trump's presidency, another bombshell, the walls are closing in, over and over again. How many times did they say that Putin was sick? How much propaganda by our own country we force-fed? Why would Putin want to fix the West and inspire patriotism, which boosts morale and the Western armed forces? Exactly. Why would he want to help us when he knows we don't want to be friends with him? he's just sitting there, just kind of laughing, sitting back in his chair. Understand, he knows all the things we wanted to hear, and he said them 100 times in Russian state media. He didn't say them to the West for a reason. Putin isn't here to save us patriotic Westerners. Putin wants to save Russia. Putin cares about Russia. He doesn't care about the United States, especially when they don't want to be allies with him. And that's the leaders that we need, that we used to have, where at least, well, I don't know if we've ever had, but we need leaders that do care about the United States. We don't have that. The closest thing that we have to that is Donald Trump. The West is toast, and he's fine with that, because he's made it very clear we are forever rivals. He has new friends, new currencies. He mentioned that in the interview. Why aren't you working with China? Why aren't you working with India? So they're in the BRICS. You know, they are not having to rely on the dollar anymore. And he mentioned how the United States was trying to remain in power by using the dollar as a weapon. New trading partners. You know, we got into the Nord Stream pipelines. I mean, there was another thing that, come on, we all know who did it. We all know who did it. And it has to do with liquefied natural gas. And Putin even said it. We'd be more than happy to provide the liquefied natural gas, but the United States doesn't want that to happen. That is one of the reasons this war, that's why we're involved in this war, is energy. Putin mentioned that in the interview as well yesterday. He gave everyone a boring story history lesson that nobody wanted to hear as a flex. I think that he was using that history lesson to educate all of us the history of Russia. And at first I thought, you know what, this isn't good. If he's going to do this based on the fact that, well, back in the 14th century or 16th century, I can't remember. Then, you know, Ukraine was part of Russia. It was all one thing, and then it was like a sea structure around Moscow. And you know, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to bring it back under Russian territory. I mean, it's an okay reason, but it's not a very good reason. I mean, to just let things alone. But we also know that that's part of it. He gave us the history lesson on the fact that it was part of Russian territory. But more importantly, really what happened was, and not many people understand or know, especially those who have the Ukraine flags hanging out in front of their homes or have the stickers on their cars, don't understand the coup that took place in 2014, the overthrow, and the expansion of NATO to Russia's borders after he repeatedly said, don't do it, and they just kept doing it anyway. But I think the history lesson I found kind of interesting. I didn't think it was all that boring. And here's a person who is proud of their country, by the way, who is giving someone from the United States who's going to have a very huge audience a lesson or a bit of information on how this whole thing came about when it came to Ukraine. And then also the fact that, you know, you had neo-Nazis as well in Ukraine, and it seemed like we had no problem, or we had a problem with neo-Nazis until all of a sudden we're supporting Ukraine. Now neo-Nazis are, it's a more complicated issue now. So he did that on purpose to disappoint and bore us. I don't know if I agree with that necessarily. Ask your leaders, he told Tucker over 10 times. I'm not here to save the sensible citizens left in the West. I'm here to save Russia. We are his enemy, and we are making mistakes. Putin is smart. Never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. Napoleon Bonaparte. And we're making plenty of them. And like he said, he doesn't have anything against the United States citizens. But the United States, who's always treated him with disrespect. I mean, listen to what Hillary Clinton just said. And by the way, another side note, she had no problem selling our uranium to Russia through the foundation. I mean, there's all kinds of information about that. She had no problem there. But just listen to how they talk about Russia and how all of these things are involved in getting Trump elected and using Tucker Carlson as a puppet. I mean, just lie after lie from the Clintons. And so Putin is looking at it and saying, let them destroy themselves. They don't like me, so ask them why they're doing it. But I thought overall it was a really good interview. And it was interesting, at least from my perspective, to watch. And here was something, this was interesting that I happened to pick up while I was researching this.
May I just ask you a direct question? Did you order Alexei Navalny's assassination?
Of course not. We don't have this kind of habit of assassinating anybody. That's one. Number two is, I want to ask you, did you order the assassination of the woman who walked into the Congress and who was shot and killed by a policeman? Do you know that 450 individuals were arrested after entering the Congress, and they didn't go there to steal a laptop? They came with political demands. 450 people have been detained.
You're talking about the Capitol.
They're looking at jail time between 15 and 25 years. And they came to the Congress with political demands. Isn't that persecution for political opinions?
May I just ask you a direct question?
So there you go. Even Putin knows that the January 6th incident was, I mean, that's another lie from the left. And this is the other thing. I certainly hope that when Trump gets in, that everybody gets pardoned. I mean, that has to happen. Absolutely has to happen. Because we cannot, these people, and, what happened to Ashley Babbitt was absolutely horrible. But these are still people in America that are sitting in jail without due process. I mean, I could never imagine in a million years that we would live in a country like that. But we do. And that's how desperate it is right now. One last story. Actually going longer than I expected with all these fine people that have shown up. I really extremely surprised, but I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. And again, you can within the last story, if you want to support our work, you can go to streamlabs.com/Den Hendrickson. You can see it here at the bottom of the screen. And you can donate it as little as $5 and have your message read. It's kind of like a super chat. You can have it read aloud on air automatically. And you can go to DennisHendrickson.com. You can sign up there for free and become a member there. And we can there's additional content that I will be posting on a more regular basis that I won't be on YouTube and Rumble. So we're just trying to get this thing going. It's been a struggle, especially with the shadow banning that we've had from YouTube. A little bit of a background story. Now that we have quite a few people here, I kind of let you know, now that we have a little bit more attention than we've had in the past, that we're doing quite well during the trucker convoy, the Canadian trucker convoy. And I just don't, I think at that point that there wasn't really, it wasn't on YouTube's radar for the algorithm to shadow ban it or ban it outright. And so we grew the channel to 50,000 followers. And we had a few videos make it to almost 1 million views. And then once I started doing more political stuff, obviously that hurt us quite a bit, to the point where it makes, the YouTube channel makes no money at all, and the amount of the followers is actually dropping significantly, which I've heard a lot of content creators talk about, and also the amount it's just not getting out to a lot of the people. So we've really made a decision to try and go as much as we possibly can into Rumble. And that's what we're just going to keep on going and doing. And so any of you that can support us, I'd really appreciate it. I'm just happy right now, the fact that all the people that are here. This is great. Really, really great. So all right, one last story. This is if we're living in a DEI world, diversity, equity, inclusion. And I've been saying this for a very long time, that it's bad enough if the companies you work with are involved in DEI. However, if you start getting into DEI into certain sectors of the economy to where lives could be put in danger, we have a whole new set of circumstances. And that's where we're at right now with the Alaska Airlines deal, with the door blowing off. And Boeing, both these companies are focusing, based on the literature, on their online material. They are spending more of their time paying attention to DEI than they are safety. And what's going to end up happening is lives are going to be lost as a result of that. It's just inevitable. And I don't see them changing until these planes actually start falling out of the sky, which I predict you're going to, and I hate to have to even say this, but I think more of this is going to start happening. But what's even scarier now is that Matt Walsh has found video that the FAA is now, after all of this stuff is happening, all of this stuff going on, that they're going to focus on DEI. And they should, DEI, and I thought I had come up with it, but I guess somebody came up. When is DEI going to be DIE? And I think that's what's going to start happening. But Matt Walsh, I've obtained internal footage of senior officials at the FAA's Flight Program Operations Division, which is responsible for all aspects of aircraft operations, workshopping a plan to reduce the number of white males in aviation. So the attack on white males, guys like me are apparently the most dangerous individuals on the planet. We are the big bad white males that are the cause of everyone's problems, and we are extremely dangerous, and it's nothing else. It's us. But I want to play this video. The footage begins with FAA Acting Deputy Chief Operating Officer Angela McCullough saying more workers need to go from ramp to cockpit. In other words, she wants to see more baggage claim handlers become airline pilots.
And we're looking at that, but we're also looking at really a need across the agency to recruit and retain a diverse population of folks. And as you mentioned earlier, how much that adds to the process. What do you think are some of the key points that we need to remember as we embark on this challenge going forward?
That's a pretty good question. I think one of the things we need to now is that everyone else is embarking on the same thing, right? Just across the system. So competition is going to be it's just going to be really heavy, right? So I think we need to know that. I think it's going to take some creativity. You heard Tim saying he and I had talked about, and we're going to you all is, are there opportunities for any partnerships with universities or trade schools that specialize? We kind of talked about from ramp to cockpit. Is there some things that we would want to look at there?
Ramp to cockpit. As the meeting goes on, McCullough declares that it's important to get a little uncomfortable. She complains that flight operations is white male dominated. White male dominated. And tells the managers they need to talk about what the future could look like.
Male dominated. But we need to be willing to have a conversation about kind of what's standing in our way from approaching some of these things differently than we have historically approached them. And just even the internal bias, particularly in flight ops, your whole program is very heavily male dominated. It just is. And really it is white male dominated. Let's just say what it is. And so let's be willing, that is today what it is. And then let's talk about what could the future look like if we really had this program that was representative of the whole country, right, of the whole world. And sometimes those are challenging or difficult, or I would say people get a little bit uncomfortable talking about that, and like, hey, we're not going to make change unless we get a little bit uncomfortable. And let's be uncomfortable together, and let's do the right things and support each other moving forward. So I don't know if you wanted all that, but you got it, sir.
No, we didn't want all that. What I want is I want to get on a plane and I want to fly somewhere and not have to worry about whether or not I'm going to make it. This is how out of touch and stupid these people are. That after all of the things that are going on and all of this stuff is in the news, that they just don't care. This is what they're focusing on, not safety, but this.
No, Angela, that's great. Honestly, those are some words that we really need to spend some time, I think, kind of digging through and thinking about.
It's unbelievable. I don't care who you are, but for you to sit there and say something like that, I think that's great. That was Will Riggins, FAA's Vice President of Flight Program Operations. So now you have the regulatory agency of the United States basically saying, okay, that's what our focus is going to be. Our focus is now going to be on DEI. These aren't even the airlines. It's the regulatory agencies of the airlines. We are now in extremely dangerous territory, to where now it's all about whether or not it's getting to the point whether you're going to be able to survive this or not. I will not get on a commercial flight as of now. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know what you all think. But after hearing that from at the FAA, do you honestly think that we're safe in the air now? If that's what they're paying attention to, Boeing can't put a damn door on a MAX plane properly. And like I said, I think you're going to start seeing more. I think there was an engine issue with a Boeing plane. There was a wheel that fell off in Atlanta. There actually was a private jet that in Naples that crashed either yesterday or the day before. Both engines failed. Now, is all of this kind of stuff DEI related? You know, not every single crash is going to be for, you know, that's not necessarily the case, but this isn't going to help. This footage, which is from April 2022, is a sign of a much larger problem. Over the last few weeks, I've heard from several members of the aviation industry who tell me that DEI is endangering the public and distracting them from their work. There you go. A second source, a pilot I've confirmed works at Delta, tells me that Delta has recently promoted a trans-identifying pilot who repeatedly received bad reviews from captains. According to the source, this pilot would likely not have survived probation if he weren't trans. We recently had a transgender pilot repeatedly receive negative reviews during his first-year probationary period. From captains, he flew, or first-year probationary period from captains, he flew with regarding attitude, CRM, and judgment, yet the Chief's Pilot's Office, CPO, was unwilling to address the issue. Had this not been a transgender pilot, the individual would likely not have successfully completed their probationary period. Coincidentally, that CPO has a management pilot on staff who recently transitioned, who was able to weigh in on these matters. That's good to know. The source also notes that Delta routinely makes exceptions for trans-identifying pilots concerning grooming and behavioral standards. Internally, Delta has even published a lengthy guide for pilots who believe they were born in the wrong body. Helpful steps for transitioning at Delta. Wow. This industry-wide embrace of overt mental illness affects every aspect of aviation. Another source told me that his job is to design advanced military systems, but he's constantly sidetracked by DEI proposals like gender-inclusive seatbelt. I don't even know what a gender-inclusive seatbelt is. Like, there's a different seatbelt for... Does anybody know what that is? We hire college graduates with zero experience who get assigned a project and immediately start pushing this nonsense. This is part of the problem. They're hiring college graduates, and they come out, and that's what they do. They start pushing this kind of crap. This is why, by the way, don't send your kids to college anymore. It ain't worth it. Unless they're going to be a doctor, lawyer, or CPA. Or an engineer. For context, I work in a field where my job is to design military systems for the warfighter, whatever, redacted. And I have to deal with new hires pitching me ideas about gender-inclusive seatbelts. Companies are made up of two types of individuals: those who eat, sleep, and breathe DEI, ESG, the pronoun in their email signature people, and those who keep their mouth shut and do the work. We have affirmation groups, protections, and heritage months for every single type of person except white men. if I don't have at least 2 DEI ESG meetings or trainings per week on my calendar, then the all hands / town hall meetings have some sort of DEI baked into the agenda. We constantly have lunches, dinners, happy hours, movie nights, holiday celebrations, all in the name of DEI, led by ESG champions, while the rest of us try to get our work done. By the way, I don't know if some of you have, I'm sure all of you know Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek Ramaswamy, who was running for president and dropped out, wrote a book called Woke Inc., and he was the CEO of a company and wrote about this kind of stuff where it was just constant, where these college graduates were coming in and they seemed to just want to run things. And then especially they were trying to push, this DEI stuff. And no one pushes back. No one tells these people to shut up. And I'm telling you, and now with airlines, I knew this was gonna happen. It was inevitable that it was gonna make it into airplane manufacturing, pilots, and it's gonna be maintenance too. Several sources also sent me documentation about one of the FAA's largest programs called EFAS, which prioritizes Indian tribal-owned corporations. So now it's going to be outsourced companies and socially and economically disadvantaged businesses for billions of dollars in critical grant funding. This is worse than I could ever imagine. The FAA's master order agreement for the EFAS states that certain FAA contracts for dollar amounts between $10,000 and $150,000 are automatically reserved exclusively for socially and economically disadvantaged businesses. Are you guys feeling safer? Hopefully no one has a flight tomorrow. It's only a matter of time until this combination of incompetence and anti-white discrimination leads to a major air disaster. Absolutely, of course, 100%. It is a matter of time. The aviation industry needs a completely new mandate, one that's focused solely on safety before a lot of people die. These are people inside this stuff. So, yeah, the DEI has made it to the FAA and to air travel, and there you cannot make mistakes. The lives in the country are in grave peril as it is because of all of that stuff. But really, when you look at it, it's almost like I have to keep reminding myself, these are communists. And communists, what do? They're unproductive. They're uncreative. They stand for nothing. They only stand for destruction, and that's what they're doing. And now they've made it to the airlines. And so what they're doing is they're destroying America from the inside. And it's along with other things, with corporations, and a lot of the corporations have been infiltrated by communism. And so that's where we're at, and we have to root out the communism. We have to root, and this is why it's at this point people are going to die, because that's what these communists want. They want people dead. And so in order to keep this from happening, that's why it's so important for us to have Donald Trump in office. And that's why it's so important for all of us to stick together and do what Grandpa did, and help, spread the word to all of us that are looking for more of this type of content. And again, thank you, WH Grandpa, real WH Grandpa, for the for the referrals and all of you that have shown up on Rumble as a great surprise. I don't know how many of you are going to be watching the Super Bowl tomorrow. I probably won't be, but I will be streaming again tomorrow at 8. I'm just looking here. Yeah, so tomorrow at 8, be back online again. And hope I know. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's 6. What does the game usually start? 6:30, 6:45. So it might still be going on, but I don't know. Maybe we could do a watch party if some of you are still watching it. But again, I hope to see all of you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And again, thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate it, and see you tomorrow night.